My second meeting with Monika Guzek is all about multicultural aspects in business. We also delve into work-life balance and understanding local habits as a business advantage. Let's hear what she's got to say. Have you had your breakfast?
Yes, I had. So thank you for remembering this. I had, and I'm fine. Thank you.
Yeah. How do you respond to have you had your breakfast?
It's. I would say that nobody. It's really like asking you this. This is how you can much more literate what other person, for example, from China, is asking. So you're saying just mostly that you're fine, thank you, or
Okay.
so it's not that precisely somebody's asking you like what you had, and I'm sharing a sandwich or maybe oatmeal or whatever. It's much more to check in if you are fine, if you are full, if you don't need anything.
Do they ask this question in English too?
I would say that nobody never asked me, starting the meeting or meeting somebody like, have you had your breakfast? I would say it's much more, normal. How are you? But then it's maybe suggestion that, oh, maybe let's go grab something, or let's have a coffee. Would you like to eat something? We also need to remember that when this question, even direct question about, would you like to eat something, it's appearing in this not direct cultures. Like, for example, we discussed last time, Asia, or in Europe, it will be Ireland or Portugal. So it's good to answer first no as a politeness, and then they will ask you again. Also, it's good to, or even if we say directly, yes, I would like, it's fine. Much more, we need to be conscious when you ask other person from this not direct cultures, would you like to, I don't know, have something to drink, to eat, do something. It can be also like in business purpose. Most of the time, as the first answer will appear no. And this is this politeness. So you need to ask second, third time, and so on.
All right. I feel you. We've already had our talk, right?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. And we talked about life and communication in a multicultural environment. And I feel like it was all about them, stating that colloquially, of course. And we are going to delve into business a little bit more in a few minutes. But first, I would love to hear about us, the Poles. So how are we seen in the world?
Mm-hmm. So, like small digression, it's always easier to look at them. And always when I'm working, with some teams, they ask me like, okay, describe me them, how they are, give me tips and so on. I'm saying like, it's easy, I know, but this is my tips, let's say, like something what is working for me, maybe for other teams. That's why it's extremely important to look at who you are and as well like who we are as a Poles. So I would say that one thing it's we have a lot of stereotypes even about ourselves still. Each time when I'm asking people like, what do you think people think about Poles when even they're working together or just they hear Poles? So, a lot of time it's coming not the best, let's say, connotation. So, that we are thieves, that we are, breaking rules and so on. And I would say that, of course, it was a past and some stereotypes are based on something what was really happening. But I would say that like nowadays, a lot of people around the world, they are impressed how smart we are, how educated we are. I would even say that we are overeducated, that we graduate masters, postgraduate studies, doing PhDs and so on and so on. We speak several languages. So this is also how people are impressed that we can speak. This is what we last time discussed, that we have this fear, of being judged, that maybe we don't speak good enough and so on. But I heard even in my career, during my career as well with my clients, that other sides like, wow, you speak really good English, German, any other languages. And this is mostly not the only one language itself. And as well, I would say that we are hardworking. So, of course, it has pros and cons because we deliver mostly everything on time. It's extremely good quality and so on. But of course, it has some disadvantages, mostly based on, related to our health and that we are one of the most stressed nations in European Union and so on. So I would say that we should start looking at ourselves, from this brighter perspective and be proud who we are in a global, world.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about this work-related stress, but first, tell me about this daily life optics of like doing business and working, because you told me last time that like you mentioned these women doing their like mascara rituals at the very beginning
Yes.
of their day at the office. So do you remember some more of such? Like, you know, my girlfriend's asking because she would probably like to relocate or something really.
Yeah, so in Indonesia, we this was kind of shock culture for me, because in I would say in Poland, or before I was working in Germany. So you go to the office, you grab your coffee, and as soon as possible you just sit and work. And in Indonesia, it was kind of ritual that my colleagues, this first had breakfast, which took around 1 hour, and then it was a makeup time. So there was a mirror, they were putting makeup and so on, and I was like, oh wow, I'm doing this before going to the office.
Okay, so it's like they have all their staff for makeup at the work.
Yes.
Like you have your special drawer by your desk, and okay.
Yes, I believe that it has some connotations as well to how long we are working, because in most of countries, I would say when we are task oriented, so you just do your job and then you leave your office. We need to remember that in many Asian countries, or at least it's my experience, and we can look on the data as well. People staying long hours at work. So they come, let's say, at 8 a.m. and they leave at 8 p.m. or even later. And it's not because they have, like, one reason, of course, is a lot of work to do, but other thing is that it's appropriate to spend long hours at work. One thing is, traffic, so they stay longer to avoid some traffic. Then it's also that most of them, they won't leave job, like work, office before they boss, because this is something not acceptable. So then they do everything what they can at work. Sometimes to, what I experienced. Sometimes it was just to pretend working. Even I was doing this, because I just had to be there.
Okay. So this is like this very deep layer and like source of everything, because somebody can do nails, somebody can do makeup, but you mentioned Germany, and like you grab a cup of coffee and you go straight to your tasks, and you mentioned us Poles as being overstressed by work and work environment. So what the fuck? I mean, are they less stressed even though they sit around until 8 p.m.?
It's like a lot of factors. So of course, today I want to mention everything, and it's also very personal. So we need to see. So that you mentioned Germans. So from 2007 till I think last year, we were on the first place, and then Germans.
Okay.
Look at it. So we are on the same page, at the same page, and about other cultures. So we don't need to go really to Indonesia or to Asia. We also observe this in Italy, Portugal, Spain, and so on. So there's many factors will influence how stressed we are at work, and one of them, which definitely diverse and differentiate us from these countries which I mentioned, it's uncertainty avoidance. So this is kind of dimension, let's say cultural dimension, or part of us, which tell us how we react on situations which we don't know what's going to happen, what's going to happen. That we have a lot of factors which we don't know, and we as a Poles or Germans as well, they are very similar in this aspect. We need to be in control. We need to know what's going on. When we have a project, we love to know, all scope of this project, even if we are responsible for a tiny piece. And this nationalities which I mentioned, so Latin countries and as well Asians and so on, they deal better with something what it's not known. It's also coming, from our history. We have very difficult history, let's say, like as a Poles. It's also coming from the people who are from the rural areas, where was agriculture and so on. There is more uncertainty because everything was depending on the weather. So people start learning how to live with this uncertainty. So this is, definitely something what has till now some influence on us. And I would say the third aspect, it's something what we, I would say, daily even don't recognize a lot of times. It's like if we are more looking as individual person, so I'm working, I'm doing things. If we are in a group, so these groups create kind of support, sense of belonging. So as well, they reduce our stress level. Of course, it's not that bright in those countries because there is also these groups create a lot of tensions and so on. But mostly, if we feel that we belong, that we are in a group, that we can share our frustration and so on openly, let's say, and somebody's hearing us, then we deal better with stress.
Right. How to deal with stress then? And you know, you could be drinking alcohol, but I don't know if it is that.
And we perceive like the Poles or I don't know Russians that we drink here in this area a lot of alcohols. In Asia it's also normal.
Really?
Yeah, in Japan, Korea, there's a really high percentage of people who are like every day drinking alcohol, strong alcohol. So we just don't see some aspects of cultures of what is really happening.
How about Indonesia?
It's Muslim country, so it's it's different. That's why Indonesia it's mix of, I would say, religions, cultures, and so on. So most of people won't drink. You won't even buy it, in the shop. You can like when I was there, you were not able to buy this in a normal shop like beer or something like this. You just had to go to hotel.
Okay. Are there some techniques that are culturally oriented? I mean, we are talking about this actually. Like culturally, this is quite easy for us to drink alcohol for Japanese and Koreans too. But they are a little bit like Westerners, no? Like that they've got this huge influence of United States over there. So maybe that's the reason. But Indonesia, as you've mentioned, more religious, and Arabic states, that's the same. So, are there some ways of dealing with stress?
I think that it's generally how life looks like. So people are not in a rush like we are. We are just constantly running somewhere, and this is this Western approach. I don't remember if last time I mentioned this, but last time when I was in US for certain weeks having project there, I was laughing to myself because everybody around me were just really like running and saying like, I'm so busy. And even in my private situation, like I asked my friend, like, can we do something? No, I'm so busy, we can't. And I'm like, what you doing that you're so busy? It's holiday time, for example, or something like this. So I would say that this is, coming also from this approach, if the work is our value. And we can see this as well in Asia, but as well, temperatures influence that everything is just happening slower. And if you ask me about techniques and so on, I was surprised, for example, while I was living in China, that in the morning, people going to stadiums, going to parks, and so on to have day training, tai chi, and so on. So meditate. So I would say that also, this is a lifestyle. How healthy you eat in Western countries, even in US. You can see like it's a lot of burgers, French fries, and so on and so on. So this also influences in many places in Asia next to the companies. You have just local places where you eat healthy food, right? Rice, veggies, and so on. So I would say that it's like whole mindset. In China, for example, a lot of people start the day with hot water because this will, help your chi energy, to it like, flow through your body and so on. But in, I don't know, Portugal or Italy, you start the day with coffee. So this is also your moment to stop, to, appreciate your coffee and so on. So I would say that rituals or techniques might be very similar around the world. We just will use different, let's say, liquids, with this example of what we are drinking, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I would say what you mentioned, that definitely slower you start your day, it's better. And I'm also working, with managers exactly on the stress part. So how to deal with our emotions and so on. And why I'm mentioning this, because in the places where you have more nature around us, people are also like, living slower. And as well as temperature. So we can see even in Poland that we changed when, I don't know what, like how it's for you, but I see that, just warmer it's outside, then kind of more lazy I became, I feel like, maybe I would just go for a walk. I would go to the forest, to the lake, whatever. I don't want to spend my hours in front of computer, right? And when it's winter, for me, it's way easier to start doing something, productive at home and so on. So I would say that this is also, something what influence us. And another thing which I wanted to mention, you said about these exercises in the morning. So imagine that in some companies in Asia, for example, in Philippines, in China, in Japan, with who I was working, they start their day with group exercises. So they meet in front of company, or even in the office, just small team, and they start with stretching and so on. And this is cool. I always introduce this to groups with who I'm working, even from Europe, because this create a community. It's good for your health. I see just some benefits, this kind of way of starting day.
So cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So we can also do it with your team, or introduce this.
Definitely. I can imagine working at a company like that, like slow life, but still balanced with this professional part of your life. The rituals.
This is something which we also should remember. And you asked me previously how how we are seen as a Poles, abroad. So we love. This is of course like statistically, we love to be in a rush, right? So this just brings you tension. And if you don't have this small ritual in the morning, it doesn't need to be 1 hour. It can be even 5 minutes that you start breathing, whatever. Then you are more relaxed, more, I would say, enthusiastic, or happy. And then other people see this. So one thing which I'm always smiling when I hear that's what I believe we spoke about this last time, that our first face expression. So we are quite serious. So then when we join even Zoom calls or any calls, people think like, are you angry? Something is wrong. So because we are stressed already, we have so many things to do, and then our first face expression showed it. So people are like, what I'm doing, what's wrong?
That's so true. I just remembered in my private life a person I met for the first time, and she told me that she really, really liked me from the very beginning, because when we like saw each other, I just like smiled so profoundly. That was a nice picture, and yeah, I can imagine that this first impression can be quite important, but we do have daily first impressions, don't you think? Like you go to sleep, you reset, and the next day you can make another first impression. It's not going to be this global first impression you make on a person, but it's this tiny little first impression the given day. And I think we should remember that. Wow, that was so good.
Yeah. So I even give like business example. So once I was still working in a corporate, and with my sales people team, we went to the client to Denmark, and my colleagues were doing presentation, presenting our products, talking about data and so on, technical aspects. And after this presentation, one of participants, he was Italian, he came to me and to one of my colleagues and said, like, I will give you a tip, because my wife is from Czech Republic. I know cultures are not the same and so on, but you have very similar one aspect which you need to remember. So when you go to the meetings or sales presentations, you don't need to show everything. It's much more about showing who you are, talking, being more chill. Because he said, like, you can look on Danish, they were all stressed. And this is also not only about our face expression. And it's true, my colleague was sweat when he was like presenting this, and I was like, oh wow, there is a lot of information. He said, like, nobody will remember this. It's much more which impression you leave. So all data and technical aspects you can send later. People will check if they want to. So we also need to remember that we don't need to, be constantly in rush to doing a lot of things at the same moment, sharing everything. Sometimes, less you give, more you gain in this sense, because and why I'm saying this, it's not only, about being stressed or having this good first or second impression, but it's also about ability to build relationships. So before we mention, Germans or Poles, so we are very task oriented. Most of us, we are very task oriented. So we believe that, spending time on chat or small talk, smiling, having meals together and so on, it's not bringing us any benefits. It's just losing time. And I would say, no, this is exactly where we do business. Of course, it depends who is on the other side. If we have two people who are similar, that's fine. Nobody will say anything. But if on the other hand, on the other side, we have a person who is more relationship oriented, they don't need all your data. They need to see who you are. And this is, I would say, winning part.
Yeah. It really corresponds with what we do at PLA school, because they say with an AI, you will be translating everything and stuff, but we should be aware that we build the relationships mostly with language, and not only what we say, but how we do that. So basically what you've said is that style and form can really influence the value of our communication, what we say.
Yeah, we will see. And, still, for example, ChatGPT or AI, it's not culturally sensitive. So this is something what we need to remember. However, I'm very curious. Last week I was working with one team and they told me about function on a Teams platform that Teams, there's some part which they tried already. It's, sending you minutes, like notes after a meeting. And as well, it's able to share, statistically, who was happy, who was not happy, so I'm reading some emotions, who interrupt who, and so on. And then you have statistics really on this. And then, we were wondering if, how they find out that you are happy. What, that you are smiling, it's your tone. Because, in different cultures, we also pronounce things differently with more enthusiastic way, or it's that's good, right? So I'm also curious how, this technology will also influence our life. But yeah, this is the future, I would say.
Anyways, artificial intelligence, not the subject today. Today I would like to hear more about Germans, maybe. Since you've mentioned that we are so similar, what are the differences then? We do business with Germans, and what should we really remember about?
Mm-hmm. So before I answer this, I will also, admit that we need to remember that, everything what we also discussed, it's kind of generalization, right? So, research or even our own experience is showing that more diversity or even cultural diverse aspects are in one country. So, if we go from, Poznan to Katowice, or to Gdańsk or Białystok and so on, we will have a lot of differences. And we might be surprised how people call certain names, certain things, or how they behave and so on. So the same, we need to remember that it's happening in different countries. So it's much more regional differences, or something what we can observe in certain regions. So also how Poles are perceived, we need to also look at, we are task-oriented, but we have this vibe, of Slavic people. And this is one of the things which it's making us different from Germans, because our history, that we need to look, which influences we have. So we have, German influences, Russian, Austro-Hungary in the past, and so on. So this makes a mix of qualities which we have in our society. That's why in certain aspects we might see that we are very similar, for example, to Germans. We need rules. But then is the Slavic part. We like only rules which we think that, are useful for us. And Germans need generally rules, so then it's without this Slavic flavor. So when, for example, we do business with most of Germans, of course, will be everybody. There will be less this relationship part. So we don't need to share what we had for breakfast because it will be too much, right? but it's much more, really going down to business and focusing on task, on what we do, and so on. They are definitely more time oriented than us because, again, when we have deadline, let's say that it's today till the end of the day, like for today is the deadline. So for Germans, we should even send something, the day before, 2 days before. Deadline is the last day where you should do something. For some of us, it's like the day where even if you send something the next day or the next day in the morning, at night, it still will be okay, right? So we need to remember that we have this our Slavic flavor on many aspects which are visible in Germany. Something what was for me, I would say even for me, difficult because I was born, 80 kilometers from German border. So, German, like I also speak German and so on. So for me I thought that I'm quite direct. And when I moved to Germany, I find out that I'm not. So when I thought that I express myself directly, not really. They are more direct, most of them. So we need to, a lot of time when I'm working with Polish German teams and so on, I hear that, Germans, they are not nice. They are like angry that they are bossing us around and so on. And of course, it can be personal aspect as well. We need to remember that there's always a personality. But most of the time we perceive this because exactly, they are not smiling, they are not relationship oriented, they are, going down straight to business and so on. So things which I mentioned as well about Poles, we can see in Germany. So everything now, it's generally when we talk about intercultural topics, it's relative. So, what we compare to, which country we compare to which country, So for, let's say even for Indonesians, we will be super task oriented, not relationship oriented and so on. Germans are mostly more than us. So that's why we might perceive them like how we are perceived for different countries. So making short.
What about some things or events or people who are triggering Auschwitz? I say that, and I believe that the conference room full of Poles is gonna be like more attentive, and I'm sure that I am going to have the attention of everybody, right? In Poland. So, what's their thing in Germany? What shouldn't be talked about, or should we? Like we might be talking about this, but skillfully.
I would say that it depends what is our relationship with people and how comfortable we are together to talking about these topics, because I believe that even in Poland it's the topic which it's not easy. Let's say it's bringing a lot of emotions, a lot of even ways of dealing with this topic, which is not, let's say, how to say this, nicely. That it's not appearing in business, let's say. So being correct, political correct in this aspect. So I would say like I've never heard or spoke about this, in any business meeting, because we also need to remember that in Germany, business is business, and it's not even well perceived to add other topics which might be controversial. So it's much more like it's sensitive, and I had two ways. I remember it was my colleague who mentioned this topic, and it was curious. We discussed openly like what are views, how we perceive this, and so on. However, I had as well situation where my colleague from Portugal, he made a joke, about Auschwitz, or and I told him like, sorry, but for me this is not funny at all, because it's related to my family, my country, my nation, and so on. So I would say that they are this I would call much more like a taboo topic in business. Something what definitely wants be visible on the first sights. But nowadays, I would say that as well, many Germans are conscious what's happened, but they also, past is past. We need to focus on what we can do now. So I never had experience that somebody was mentioning something very negative about our history. They are much more like careful. I would say that difficult comments which appeared with Polish teams, it was much more that we had cheap labor sources. So it's like that's why some businesses were transferred to Poland, and this is, I would say, much more challenging nowadays than really our history.
People from Austria, they are speaking German, but it doesn't mean they are the same.
Yeah, no, they're definitely not the same. And this is, the biggest mistake which we can do. It's saying like, oh, they are all the same. They speak, I would say, it's not the same. It's not the same German. So it's not Hochdeutsch. And for example, in Switzerland, when they speak Swiss German, I don't understand 90%. I don't know what they are talking about. I'm sometimes feeling like, what's going on? So, and we also need to remember that, for example, going now to Switzerland as I started, there is nobody who will be a typical Swiss, because we need to remember that in Switzerland we have four official languages, we have different cantons where you have different cultures, and that's why it's difficult to say, that how a Swiss. And as well, so just funny fact, they have also different TV channels. They don't watch the same, just it's translated. This is like completely different. So when we talk about the German speaking part where I also live, I would say that Swiss are more chill, more relationship as well oriented. But I believe that this is also the area which made them in that way, in the sense that they live around nature. They are more relaxed in this aspect. They are more. Switzerland is smaller, so they also like to know who is around. It doesn't mean that they will talk to you. They will much more observe or just say hello. For me, huge success was that my neighbor, after 1 month being there, told me finally hello as the first one. Yeah, we have a relationship. But it's a little bit different, and we also need to remember that huge influence on us as humans has not only language which we speak, even if it's the common one, but has also like different factors. And here, one of them, it's religion. So Austria is a Catholic, and Germans, they are Protestant. So we can see these differences. The Germans, that's why we perceive a lot of time Germans, they are having had upper and thinking that that they are better. It's not that each of them will walk on the street and saying like, oh, I'm better than others. It's much more that also in their religion, one of values is that you are the one responsible for your life. So you take a lead and you should know what you want. So, it's also about self-esteem. In Catholic religion, it's, my culpa, my culpa. So it's like my fault, and so on. So definitely we downgrade ourselves. So we also need to look at this, that, many factors, many things influence us, who we are and how we might be perceived.
Do they like each other?
I never had a situation that, that officially they don't like each other. But I believe, that in every place around the world they have some historical, regional, miscommunication, let's say this, or, like disliking each other. So officially, I'm not aware even of this, facts that, for example, they don't want to work together or, talking one on others. Yeah, so Swiss definitely they are neutral. They don't like to take a side or have some arguments with somebody. They like their own life, and that's why probably they are able to have one country created from different languages and so on. So I believe that this is neutral. It might be something between Germany and Austria, but to be honest, I'm not aware of. I'm not now bringing all stories and so on. I need to go deeper with this, because with Austria, to be honest, I'm not that familiar.
Have you traveled to Vienna, maybe? Like Austria more, if I compare it to Germany, for example? Like the roads, everything.
Yeah, so definitely, you can see the quality. I'm always bringing this example from Switzerland, that when once I was traveling by car and going from German part to Italian one. So you just cross a a border between two cantons, and then you could see that, oh, you are in different one. This is not German, because even the roads were like worst quality. So we were laughing that, oh, it's like in Italy. So I definitely love, and probably this is the reason why I spent so many years, and as well I'm building my life in German-speaking countries, because I like this kind of Ordnung. It's not always that this is everything how we imagine that it's perfect, but it gives me comfort. The quality, like life quality, is definitely for me in the higher standards, in the sense that people, they know what they do. To give you, some living like example from where I was living in Germany. So of course that you need to that in certain days you can throw away, certain things to the bin, and you can't leave them on the street, in different days. Or as well, I love this, and this is common for Germany and Switzerland, that if you don't need some things, you just take them outside in front of your building, and other people, they can just take it. And it's amazing for me, you don't need to think like, oh, to which office or to where I should, take them and give them to people and so on. You just leave them, and if others want. So I would say, this is also huge respect of your privacy, which I really like. It's people, of course, it's, generalization, but they don't sneak into your life in a sense that they need to gossip, they need to check. It's kind of freedom, and this is what you mentioned before, about Germans, that's why maybe I've never heard about, certain topics related to, very private parts, because exactly, nobody should judge, you are free to do what you want. And what I miss definitely after living in Germany, for example, in Berlin, it was when I back to Poland, for me was difficult that, people are judging what you're wearing, how you're wearing, and so on, how you look. In Germany, it's like, do what you want, don't hurt others.
Let's switch to totally different culture, which is Indonesia. What about the business there in Indonesia? Like, they're developing, but in which direction, which way? Can you state that? Do you know what they are missing, for example, if you compare Europe to Indonesia?
I would say that, yeah, this is true what you said. They are developing a lot, and the country itself, it's changing. So I wouldn't say what they're missing. We need to see that we are just different. We have different way of living, of running business. Unfortunately, what we can see, that Asian countries, they are influenced by big players like China, let's say, right? So even I think yesterday or 2 days ago, I read article that in Malaysia, or I think part of Indonesia, but I don't know if Indonesia will mention there, they will cut some forest part to just grow durian and something like this, because Chinese love it and they would like to sell it and there. So we need to see that this region, it's influenced by different rules that we know. In Europe, we play much more. We try at least, to know what we are good at, and then we have kind of specialization and so on, and selling things which we are good. Like for example, from Poland, it would be apples. Like something what is regional. Of course, it's important to look, if we can get more money from this, but I believe that it's also looking on our own sources. We are more conscious about environment, our influence, and so on, and there, it's still more, I would say, more about just incomes, being influenced by others. We also need to remember that, for example, in Indonesia, most of companies, big companies, local one, not international, who are just opening offices there, they are run by people whose background is Chinese. So, then you have different rules in the market. And comparing to us, it's again about relationships. So if I know you, you have something what I need, so I will do this for you, not looking really on other things which are happening, or how this will be influenced on our country, on our nature which is around us.
Okay. Do you know what they invest in apart from durian, which is the most terrible thing I have eaten?
I never tried, like I was not that brave.
The worst thing ever. Really, you need to
I was
try
like,
it.
yeah, next time definitely I will. Like when I don't know, it was even the occasion. I would say I don't know even why I haven't tried. I lived there for 2 years and I never had
Yeah.
idea, even to try
So
this. So
you see, I can imagine that there are two groups and they are very very far away from each other. The people who hate it and people who love it. Yeah, I can understand that. I'm the person who definitely hates that fruit. But worth trying, and I can imagine that there will be people who will really, really like that. So yeah, it makes sense. The Chinese want to have some more of it. What do they invest in Indonesia apart from durian?
Yeah, so even this is what they say, what they export, it's still like palm oil, gas, um, and all this, I would say heavy industries. So I would say that, because mostly when I'm working with service, of course they are Indonesians, and I'm always happy to see them, but they are. This is not that this is Indonesia company. Even once when I was supposed to run a project, it was still a gas, so like industry. So the sources. So I would say that I believe it's still, tourism when you go there, and we need to also remember that Indonesia is a very specific country, and it's not that open and easy to live there for even,
Really?
digital
Why?
nomads and so on, because we have, a lot of islands, and in Java, where it's Jakarta and so on. So it's much more like a volcano island. So that's why this industries like heavy industries are more visible there. And then we have Bali, which always we perceive like, oh, Indonesia, all Indonesia looks like this, and it's not true. And as well, like religiously diverse. So Java, it's Muslim. Bali, it's Hindu. So it's much more Hindu. It's also different for people to live there, and there's a lot of restrictions. How long you can be. I don't know if this law changed. I haven't checked, but while I was working there, I met a Polish man who, even that he was living, like he had an Indonesian wife, officially married. They had kids. They lived in Indonesia, in Bali. Every 6 months, he had to leave country. And he didn't know if he will be able to be back. Even he was running business, everything. There was still different rules, not really, I would say, friendly for foreigners. So that's why I also didn't meet there a lot of, I would say, foreigners who would like to stay for a long time.
Some would say that France, Germany, and Western Europe could use some law like this lately.
Yeah.
Okay, so where would you live right now if you could choose? Yeah, let's say you wanna, and you are going to stay for a little bit longer. So, which part would it be and why?
So now I would. So those of people who will listen to this, they know already the answer. So it's Portugal. So I lived there, and my heart is still there, and I believe that Porto is a place for me where I have everything. That I have ocean, I have sun, I have friendly people, relationship-oriented people, which I need to also be happy. And yeah, and it's European Union, so it's super easy. You don't need to have any special documents or something like this. So after living in many countries and also different continents and so on, I really appreciate being in Europe, in a sense that I love traveling. I love to spend time in Asia, in US, and so on. But everything, it's, I would say, like, it's closer to go home. In 4 hours, you just travel wherever you want. You have your products and so on. So I would say, like, when I was younger, it was amazing to experience everything what it's new. Now I also like to have my comfort of understanding, of knowing the rules, of knowing what's going on. So that's why I would say that staying closer to the places which are important to me. Also, in a business way that I understand them. It's something what I choose.
Okay, so let's try and translate that to Indonesia. Like we have modern and progressive country that is not too expensive, beautiful, great wine. We could actually skip wine. And what we were talking about, you've mentioned easy travel. So let's say we want to have all that and in Indonesia. Is it possible?
Yeah, like wine we can skip. That's what you said. I would say yes. Yes, you can have, and it depends as well what you're looking for, because you have friendly people. I left, this is what I mentioned. I left Indonesia 8 years ago, and I still get messages from my colleagues when I'm going to visit them. So this is this aspect. It's great weather and so on. It's much more about how we understand as well the system. So what we really need to, you mentioned that for you it's important to have grass, in the morning, go on your grass, and enjoy and so on. In Indonesia, in Jakarta, especially because I mostly will talk about it. For me, it was surprising that there are no parks. Like if you want to go to see like something what is green and have chill there and wherever, you need to pay. And as you're a foreigner, you pay way more than locals do. So it's not like open access, so you can just go shopping. So of course it will be differently if you go to Bali. But for me, for example, Bali was too touristy. It was, too many things which were very westernized, in the sense that I felt that this is not authentic itself. So if this is my perception that if I'm going somewhere, I like to live locally. Like being surrounded by local people, have similar standards and so on. Being living in generally in Asia was for me that time quite difficult because of course person who is from Europe was treated differently. So of course we have a lot of benefits because we get a lot of things for free, and so on. You have different standards. But then it's my other part of me which was saying like, but why? Just because I'm coming from a different part of the world? So it's
lame.
Yeah, so it's, how it depends, what you want to do with it. For a short time, it was fine for me, but for other, it was quite challenging because I mentioned about my colleagues from work that they start day, having a makeup session and so on. But if they were late 1 minute, they were not getting daily salary, and they still had to be in the office. And this rule was not applying to me and my colleagues, from Europe, US, and so on. So double standards which were tough, I would say. And then we need to also remember that for example, they are working 6 days per week, and of course my contract was for 5 days per week, but I had to work as well 6 days per week, with the same salary. So it was like a lot of misunderstandings. And of course it's different when you go for a contract when you are working for a global company and just they send you to a different office. And it was as well different when I was applying directly to Indonesia company.
So, in the end, apart from business, have you found a place, a city that is going to be culturally diverse, not westernized, but like a nice place to live in? Have you been visiting a little bit more in Indonesia? Are you going to recommend some part of Indonesia if I want to visit? Because it sounds like Bali is not the thing, not the place I'd love to.
It depends. I would say, of course, I recommend go to Bali. It's like to see even how now looks Bali. After pandemic, a lot of things changed, and so I'm always saying that you should go to any place where you just want to, and also experience this by yourself. Because when we look on different cultures or different even traditions, different. This is what you said about durian. Some people will love, some will hate, and I would say that this diversity, cultural diversity, it's exactly about this. That something what will be fine for me doesn't mean that it will be fine for you. And we might have different needs. If somebody would love to go and have experience, of backpacking and so on. So maybe Bali is not really the place that you will have this adventure because everything is well organized. It's like taxi drivers are waiting for you. Island it's not that big and so on. So I would recommend much more to go to Lombok because it's then like say a little bit further. The island is a little bit further and it's more undiscovered. Let's say people not talking about it that much. But it is well again Muslim island, so it's different rules. The same is about Java. So it's you are there, and not everything it's organized in the way that going from one city to another it's so easy. Of course, you have buses and so on, but sometimes you need to discover. So I would say that everything depends what are your traveling standards, what you want to experience, and so on. Definitely Indonesia, it's still, I believe, a place where you can have both. And you can have this undiscovered part, which will be quite wild in the sense, with jungles and so on in Borneo.
And how do they collaborate? This Muslim part of Indonesia and that was Hindu, or which?
Yeah, so you have, there's, I think, as far as I remember, it's like
Okay.
5 official religions. Of course, main one, it's Muslim, it's Islam. However, we need to remember that it's different. It's not Arabic, so they also perceive different rules differently. So, and also it depends where you are. If you are in a big city like Jakarta, so they are more open, So then you don't see, at least I have never seen, religious police and so on. If you go to the smaller places, yeah, it still will be there. So at work, and they even I think in the constitution, it's written that all religions are equal. So for example, they celebrate all celebrations. So they have a lot of free days at work. And this is cool in the sense. I've never seen any difficulty to dealing and working with people from different religions. They were just nice to each other and so on. And I'm not talking about foreigners, but Indonesians. And I was there during Ramadan, so it was just in the company we had a place where people were able to go and pray. I mean, even not during Ramadan, generally. They were going there to pray, and about a hijab and so on. So women could decide if they are wearing or not wearing. Just in my company, it was a rule that women are not wearing they clothes related to religion just after their office hours. They can, and then it's their choice. And also, the clothes, even like clothing, it's colorful. So they have some they play with fashion, I would say, in this aspect. So, but of course, there are like difficult situations, and there is a part of Indonesia where you need to have special permission to go there because it's quite dangerous, and there was a lot of there's a lot of fights, let's say, related to religion and aspect in Aceh. And when I was there were some terrorist attacks and so on. But in other places, I never experienced something. Of course, a lot of I had a lot of faux pas as well, let's call it, because I thought that my dress is, for example, long enough, and then I went for to the to immigration office with my colleague, and he was like, "No, girl," and he was putting his jacket on my legs. I was like, "You need to cover more." So I would say that these rules appear that it's also like more visible to in higher positions to have men, not women. It's changing, but of course slowly. So I had as well not pleasant situation that somebody was making jokes, which my boss, he just got white on his face, even if you can use this expression, and he was just like shocked. I don't know what was this comment. He didn't want to translate to me, but I had as well many situations where I was extremely welcome, and people were curious who am I, what I'm doing in Indonesia, why I'm working there. So I would say everything depends. And what was amazing for me that nobody looked, at least I've never experienced this, through their religion. Like what you believe in. It was much more who you are as a person.
Do you know any situations where, when like understanding those customs and habits and local things, like they provided some kind of competitive advantage in business?
Definitely. So not knowing them, you might just lose opportunity, or to run a business, to I don't know, get a project and so on. So giving like being still in Indonesia. So I had a situation where, for example, I went for some conference, like for the, let's say, branch which I was working in, and I would start getting questions like do you have husband? How many kids do you have? how much you earn, and so on. And and it's like that's quite private, right? But this is something what people use as possibility to know where you are in the hierarchy ladder. So if you react not, let's say, properly, I don't know, you get angry and so on, you might lose face and nobody would like to cooperate with you. Jumping to other side of the globe to US, I lost a project because so in US you need to be enthusiastic, right? You need to everything. It's awesome. You need to sell yourself, and I knew it, so I did it, but just on the first meeting, and the whole team decided like, yeah, we want to work with you and so on. And then it was a second meeting, and I thought that I don't need to play this game again. It's like it's done already, right? And it was 10 p.m. from the place where I was connecting. So, I was tired already at the end of the day, and I was not that enthusiastic. And I had more approach in the sense like, no, this is not the way how you do this. You should do this differently, like, changing the way of, like, shifting the way of Dave way of collaborating, thinking. And then, it was not, let's say, successful because I was not that enthusiastic and, going with the flow, just looking on solutions. I had more, I would call it German approach, finding like why this is not happening and so on. So why I'm saying this, because when we sell our project, we try to cooperate. So, kind of also we build our how we are perceived and so on. So our personal branding, let's call it. We need to remember of these customs rules, where is this more relationships oriented, where it's not. Giving you as well another example more about kind of customs. So my friend, she shared this with me. So some boss from Japan, he was, I don't know if I told you this last time or not, so sorry for repeating if it was, that to Poland was coming a Japanese boss, like boss from Japan, and they knew that he loves golf. So they bought him, balls to play golf. And when he received this, he was like, they could feel that something is wrong. What was wrong? You could imagine. It was the number. It was the 4 balls. The package was 4 balls. And in Asian countries, 4 number, let's say that from our perspective, should be perceived as not existing. So because it's a bad luck, it's similar to the word death. So then you don't use it. So they don't have 4th floor. They don't have. They avoid number 4 on the license plates or phone numbers and so on. So we need to know this kind of things. And I would say that more far we go. So if it will be Middle East, Asia, and so on, for sure there will be more rules, customs which we might not know. It doesn't mean that they are not existing in Europe, for example. They do, and there's a lot of them. But because we are closer to each other, we have more knowledge about certain countries, history, and so on. And anyway, if you see that somebody like Italians, that they love to drink coffee, or in Portugal, you need to start meeting with coffee, or any other drink just to have some chat. So you are like, okay, you mostly know this because you're going for holiday there, right? So you see that's how people also behave in daily life. But if it's this is far away, you don't understand this because people are also not talking about this, a lot. So then it's, I would say, more difficult. That's why a lot of companies, if they want to enter a certain market, or if they want to just establish some collaboration, they hire a person from that country. Because even, I am not, like when you ask me about Indonesia, I can share only things which I understood, which I experienced, which I read. But I'm not from there, so I want to understand all these codes which are really happening and influencing daily collaboration.
All right. How can businesses ensure this effective communication in multi-dialect or multilingual environment? Because you just go to a language school and maybe you do not acquire linguistical competencies, and maybe you will be able to use them in communication, but still you'll be missing something. So how can we ensure this effective communication here?
Yeah, so I would share one great tip which I got when I was 24, before I moved to other country. It was my first, let's say, international experience, one businessman, he told me, like, remember, knowing language is one thing, but you need to be open to start seeing and understanding the cultural codes. And why I'm saying this, because yeah, language is important. So in certain countries, this is what we discussed already. It's way easier to business when you are like others, like other people. So you speak the same language, you have common understanding. Through language, you also behave in certain way, right? So that's why it's one thing which is extremely important. And when you brought this example of Algeria, I remember when in the company where I was working, my colleague decided that, maybe, let's establish some connection in Algeria. And he went there and he was surprised that nobody wanted to do business in English with him, and I was like, surprise, surprise, So a lot of times with companies, they, in Poland, you have this kind of programs, I don't know how to call it, from each region that you can go abroad as a investing parts, that you partnership things and so on. So they're going there and they are, thinking that if they talk with certain people, we have business, they told us like, yeah, we are interested in. Not really. Sometimes it's just politeness, and we need to know where this might happen. So that's why what, answering to your question is what we can do or how we can communicate. We need to understand exactly these cultural codes, that if we go to Germany, if we say we are interested in, it means we are interested in. If we go to Asia, if we go to, India, Middle East, and so on, even in Portugal, Italy, this is what we discussed, Latin America. A lot of time when you heard, yes, I'm interested in, it might not mean that I'm really interested in. If somebody say yes, it doesn't mean yes. It might just be conditional yes. So, first thing, it's observe and gaining knowledge about certain culture. So of course you don't need to be expert and you don't need to know everything, because it's impossible. But as well, it's to have ability to be open to trying to read the air. This is how it's called, or reading between lines, how we say in Polish. It's much more as well, not only taking what it said, but also how people behave. Knowing that this relationship aspect is extremely important, and even not being afraid of asking somebody for help and so on. So this is what you said. We were talking about hiring some people. What I'm mostly, doing with my clients, it's also to building this ability to observe, to see more, to more consciously see these things. Of course, knowledge, I transfer knowledge, but we need to remember that we have other person, in front of us. So me or any other person want to give you, instruction like, this is how you need to behave and you will be successful. It will be amazing. I would love to get this. But what if on the other side, it's a person who is completely behaving opposite to, this generalization, how we perceive Poles, how we perceive Germans, Indonesians, and so on. So that's why there's not a really good way. I would say that being conscious, this is what we also discussed last time, that if somebody asks, how are you? It's sometimes politeness, right? It's that you're smiling and smiling back. People like people who are similar to them. So that's why we don't need to know this. We can also observe and apply this, So if we see that somebody in front of us is more smiling, okay, add this smile. If it's less, you also can be more reserved. And of course, it's not about, just losing who you are and just, trying to be like other person. It's much more just checking what we can do, what we can add to our bucket of tools to be more successful in business. So I would say this, and as well being aware, in the language communication part, that we understand words differently. This is what we mentioned already before. What is a deadline, right? When we agree on this, who is responsible for what? So there's a lot of aspects which might be influencing this communication style, but definitely be less talking, more observing. This is what Asians are doing. That's why they love to have long meetings, as well Arabs. But mostly in Asia, you can observe this, that they don't talk that much. There's more space for silence because they observe. And then they, have some conclusions.
Yeah.
And we love to talk.
Especially me.
Me too. So it's, it's not that I'm saying like, I'm also learning this, this is something what I learned in Asia. Give space, listen. And I'm a colorful person. I love to talk, is what you said. But sometimes just, be quiet and listen. This is what, people from our country, I would say, will gain way, way more in business. Just listen. We don't need to show everything, how our products are amazing. They are good. Just also see who you have on the other side, what kind of person. And, I would say that it's amazing experience, which you mentioned. This is exactly what is happening to people, when we also bring different values or different behaviors. And I would say that, something what I try to do as well in business, in private life, to bring more Latin vibe. So, this a lot of, most of my friends are Brazilians. So, I learn as well to be more, let's say, open, chatty, and so on. And, even last weekend, I went for a business meeting and I thought oh, I might be too much, because I had this, American approach, hey, how are you? What's going on? And then everybody were quite chill. And I'm okay. But then, I know that if you come and you bring certain values, which, let's say, are not present, or people are shy to express them, I see only great things. So, bringing, as you said, this is very soft. So we need to look at ourselves. So I always like to add this, even when I'm running workshops. So I like to have more colorful clothes, bring in some music and so on, because we will learn that when you study or learning something, you need to be very serious, focus, and make notes. We don't trust ourselves, give me solutions. I was there's no solutions. This is other human being in front of you. So that's why I'm saying this. Of course, when we talk about, cultural aspects of doing business, in the sense, which rules, which laws, and so on, you need to follow. Yeah, then it's easier. So I would say that each of us could take something, for trips, from working with other people. And it doesn't need to be different culture itself, like nationality. This is what we discussed, that we are from different regions even. So we also can learn something from each other, right? In Poznan, for example, I see this. We are more, straight and I would say just don't go out of certain way of talking and so on. So they are more reserved. People are more reserved. So I would say taking something what it's ours, what we like, and just add it to our business, and let's see what's gonna happen. I like to always say people try, just try. You like be more smiley, just try. Of course you need to look on what you can lose, in the sense if you will share some challenging topics, let's say. But if it's some small thing, just try and see what's going to happen. Maybe people will like it, and this is what you said. Maybe it makes people closer. Or if not, they will think for a few minutes.
What are you doing? And they're gonna comment on that, and eventually you're gonna know for sure that they do not like it, and that's it. But they're going to forget that. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm always saying, unfortunately, we are not, superstars, so nobody will write about this, in all media and so on. So let's try an experiment, just taking fun of living, doing business, of working, collaborating in the office.
Yeah, Highlanders are volume plus 10. So if you're commenting on people from what, Poznan was that? So yeah, Highlanders are a little bit more. They're louder. Yeah, I mean I'm louder definitely. So it is also quite important to notice that, and then maybe readjust the volume of your voice.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's definitely to look, what is happening around us, and if we are. So yeah, exactly. If somebody will say something or not, we can see what is the reaction. So just having fun of this, just differences and similarities. I would say, that everything what we discussed today, and as well in our previous conversation, I would like that those of you who are listening us, that you take this as some kind of guidance, or showing that it can be different for different people. And it's invitation for all of you to just try to see who you have next to you, and even talking about our regional diversity. It's amazing. It's so opening. And we say that we don't know how to do small talk. This is a small talk, saying hey, I heard this, is it true? No, I have different.
Do you think companies can measure it somehow? This, let's say, cultural competence. Um, because, yeah, as we stated, it's soft. So, how can they measure it so they can know for sure that, yeah, they are missing something and they need us, PLA school, to amend that?
So I would say that yeah, this is soft. So of course, it won't be measurable in the sense that
Yeah,
how many
exactly.
words somebody says, or in how many trainings even this person's been, and so on. But what business can easily see, it's money which they are, or gaining or losing, and always a lot of times, unfortunately, this kind of cooperation. Or asking people who know more about intercultural topics, languages, and so on. It's appearing when there are some difficulties, right? So something is not going well, so let's maybe invest, or let's ask somebody to help us. And I always say like it's great to invest at the beginning because then we easier and more smoothly we can see results. So I'm working, with the companies which for example, I had like 3 years ago. I was working with one company who just in a half year lost million euro, I think, if I don't mix the currency, because they were not able to understand the partners from India. And they opened, subsidiary in India and so on. They thought that they had already experience, but they had experience with US and in Germany. India, it's different, different market, different rules. And more and more, then we had to, let's say, do everything not to deepen these difficulties, just to try to find some solutions and so on. And then it was, easy to measure in the sense to see if the project is going how they wanted it or not. But sometimes it's and so this is one of the way how we can see. Of course, you can measure. There are different tools and so on to see how ready you are to working in diverse environment and so on. However, this is a competence which we should look at, not like we will develop or not. We just need to have it. This is like with languages. So this is part of languages, I would say, even like learning, because we live in very diverse environment. We travel a lot. We have components, even in our business, in different countries. We have more international people in our own country, so we need to understand what is really going on and how to understand them. So I would say that you won't really measure this kind of soft skills, but you can see as well how people are then willing to collaborate with others. Because if you, especially it's about Poles, if you don't know other cultures, you don't understand why people behave like that, then you are more resistant. And because we have this high uncertainty avoidance, and then you just do a minimum of your work. If you know that, for example, with Americans, you need to be more expressive and everything is amazing and smile, and you know that, for example, in Asian countries you need to be more chill, you need to give more space, you need to be it will take longer, so already which techniques you need to apply. And if you don't know, then you are investing time, and then it's just frustration in the end and losing, of course, maybe some money and so on. So I would say that and unfortunately business more and more see this, that learning through their previous experience, they know that, oh, we might need somebody to support, to help our people to feel more confident how we talking, how we understanding each other and so on. And then of course results are increasing, because I would say it's difficult sometimes before and after. It's much more how people as well are willing to cooperate with others.
And can we risk a statement that if doing business with other culture is like goes from this communicational perspective worse than in Poland, than if it's just more difficult? So then it might be the issue, like the moment to maybe start investing in linguistical slash cultural competences and trainings.
Yes, if it's this area, it's also important to look on different. This again, I will use this, the different things which are happening. For example, the project and so on. Even last week, I was running a workshop for Polish team who on daily basis they cooperate with Irish, and there were like different challenges which they were facing. One of the challenge is understanding the market, so it's very technical aspects which nobody never really took care of understanding how in Polish market you cooperate and how in Irish, and then try to teach each other about these differences. So through I would say process they were learning this. So this is one thing. Other thing is just to understanding their colleagues and each other. So then a lot of let's say personal miscommunication or dissatisfaction won't appear. And it's even not about only Polish team, because there are also different offices which they're cooperating together, but they would have better understanding. And if we understand, then we easier act with these people. So this is something what I said. And of course then the first or even the last when I'm saying about this, but one of the most important facts, it was that most of this group didn't feel confident enough speaking with native speakers. Not because their language is even not good enough, but just they didn't feel confident. So that's why I believe that, this kind of training or like linguistic trainings, intercultural trainings are important just to give also this confidence to people. I remember when in the company where I was working as a project manager and product manager, I told my boss that I want to attend English classes. And he was like, you speak English, and why do you need extra English classes? I said, like, because I want to speak with, for example, native speaker, or I want to improve my pronunciation, listening even, or whatever. Then I can feel more comfortable while I'm doing business in our company. And he was like, okay. And I saw this, how in my group it was extremely beneficial that you are using, you just spoke, you just build this confidence through these classes. So I believe that it's important.
When HR departments say, or even founders, they say that no, yeah, well, we hire the people who already speak English, so we don't really need to train them and stuff. And it's like, God damn it, even if you know how to run, it doesn't mean that you can play Olympic Games just
Yeah.
like that, without training, for fuck's sake.
No.
And if your competition do invest in such trainings, they are gaining, they are better, they are getting better and better than develop. So you are staying behind. So how can it be?
One thing which is also coming to my mind, and this is what appears a lot in generally cooperation, human cooperation. It's also, how we were taught, in this case, languages at school. That I still remember my classes, even at university. I can say that I was traumatized, because all my language classes are showing that I know language or not. It was like hangman, yeah, this kind of test. You need to fill up some blanket pieces, and I don't know how to do this. I'm just a lot of times I'm just going with the flow. Yeah, I miss a word, so it's important that somehow you will find a way that you want to describe things. And I see this, during my trainings, that we are afraid of making mistakes. We are afraid of just speaking, of asking like, hey, could you repeat? Even, when we speak Polish, so imagine now when you speak with native speakers, right? That we are constantly not good enough. Even I'm always saying you use English, for example, in daily basis. So it's not that you are not good enough. It's much more that you miss maybe certain phrases. Maybe this is just to use this in different contexts, because, I love this example of my friend. She's Irish. She has a British partner, and they have a lot of miscommunication. They don't understand each other, and we are always saying, it's English, right? So they should. No, native speakers also, they don't understand. I remember one team which I was working, and they were from US, South Africa, a lot of native speakers, and they were like laughing that they can't find common sense, because they're using words with the same words but just has different meaning. And when you are not native, you also add your, let's say, layer of understanding certain things. So I would say that business also need to understand that as we're going from such a school system, even if we declare that we speak, language on, I don't know, C1 or whatever, a lot of time people are anyway afraid to just speak up at the meeting, to share their thoughts. Because this is all the time about tests, conversation or feeling fluent, or it's even not about fluency. It's even about this approach, which I mentioned, that I went for the meeting and I was like, oh, what's up? What's going on? In the past, I would never do this. And I know that, I make mistakes, that I could use different phrases sometimes and so on. But, and of course, after I'm listening some conversation or, even podcast, I'm like, oh my God, how could you say this? It's important that people understand us, and as well, how you create this confidence and so on. So I would say that this is why people should invest, in linguistic training still when we are adult and working in this area.
And even right now, when we speak, I actually have heard myself committing mistakes. Even the very fucking beginning, I have started with a mistake. But the mistakes are not the problem. The problem is not taking action. And I think that Poles have the biggest issue with this perfectionism we've mentioned, and you haven't spoken about perfectionism. So maybe we could finish our conversation with this kind of structure that we start with a subject and then we finish with it. So this is going to close it up in a bubble. How about this perfectionism, and how can we fight our perfectionism also in this context of culture and linguistics?
Yeah, so I think just what you mentioned, it's extremely important as well, to see that everybody can make mistakes, and native speakers as well, they do, and it's not that I remember a situation where I heard even that somebody did some mistake, and then I was asking, so how should I properly say this? Yours was proper. What I learned, it's proper, and they said like, did you understand it? I was like, yes. So this is it, and. So I would say that even with tiredness, of course, today you woke up quite early, but generally speaking, different language, which our native one, it makes us tired. We need to think in different way. So we structure sentences in different way. So we need to remember that that this is part of the game, mistakes. And then when we have this approach that everything needs to be perfect. I'm learning, I'm perfectionism detox. So I'm learning how to not to be sometimes perfect. So of course, this is a lot of, I would say inner work, personal work, sometimes, even with psychologists, trainers and so on, coaches. So I won't give, solution which would change everybody's life. But one thing is that, for example, during our conversation, or generally when people have conversation, we focus constantly on how we say things. In the sense that in our head is a process like, oh my God, I made a mistake, and I'm thinking about it. So then I'm not listening to you, right? And then it's making like not successful conversation, because you easily can see if somebody is listening, you're like fully engaged or not. So I would say that, of course, that's why this is what we were discussing, like English classes or generally like linguistic classes are important, because you can practice this in safe environment. Of course, it's different when you talk to your colleague and you just practice, let's say, that you really listen other person and use answer in another language. Then if you have a client and I don't know, you negotiate, a few million contracts. So it's the point is the stress, it's even in different ways. So I'm always saying that when we work with other people as well, let's see what they're doing, and this is what I shared with you example from my last week training, where this team was sharing that colleagues from, for example, from Ireland were asking them for some, there was deadline, and they were saying like, okay, just give me what you have. I will share this with client, it will be fine. And Poles were like, oh my God, but it's not perfect. Like it's not finished. It's I didn't have all data which I need to, and we the stress increased. And they were like, oh, just do it. Sometimes I would say just do it. So just talk. So that's why, each tandems when we can discuss, each time when we can practice, it's extremely beneficial. and allowing yourself to make mistakes, not focusing on this. And I know that it's like there is no really what you need to do. So when you find this mistake which you made, just let it go. Try not to think about this. Like you notice this, it's like okay, next thing. Or when we're doing certain things, try to do less, a little bit less. Allow yourself to put comma even not in a proper place, and see if the word will still will be there, or maybe it will be explosion. So this is the thing, like observing yourself in which situation it's happening. Especially we can observe this, in our body. So when stress is rising, so we start feeling like tension, or that we're thinking a lot about certain words which we say, and so on. And then it's like, let it be. So I would say that each case is different, but sometimes just to try to relax. So, instead of being angry at yourself that you made this mistake, go and, breathe air, go outside, sunny, enjoy, put your feet on the ground, on the grass, what we discussed. Yeah, drink coffee, whatever, just do something different, and step by step we can change this. I'm on the way. This is what I said. It doesn't mean that, I don't care, because we also have this way of thinking. If I'm not giving 200% of myself, it means that I don't care. I care, but what is more important for you? If something will explode, somebody will die if you don't put this comma, if you made this mistake, no. So I remember, as well, one story from Indonesia. I was working with a colleague who was Canadian, and with my other friends, with colleagues, we asked him to, correct our English. And then he said, like, but for what? Like, why should I correct this? He even didn't see the sense of doing this, because he started doing this. And you know what was the result? We didn't improve. We felt criticized.
Yeah.
So we stopped talking to him.
As you've mentioned, the safe environment, this situation of being corrected should not be in real life. So that's the thing. So if you ask somebody, hi, please correct me, this is not going to work because this person probably is not a teacher. We need to see communication when we study a language as if there were more platforms, and there is a platform to practice, and you don't give a damn about mistakes. You just go with the flow, and you use your linguistical habits. But there should be situations with your mentor, with your teacher, like once a week, and you are being corrected, and you pay attention to what you say and how you say that, because this is when you can spot these places where you can actually improve, and you can talk about it, how to improve it, with your teacher. So language acquisition is like, it is complex but not complicated. It is complex but not difficult. So we should just understand this complexity and understand that as you eat food, you cannot be eating only chicken. I think in Poland we have this tendency to be, as Poles, we tend to be on different poles. Like,
so this is what we spoke, like, right? That you work, and that you have no energy to do anything. So I would say, we need to be mindful that we need different way of improving our skills. But also something, what is important, and especially for perfectionists, is that not to focus only on improving things. And this is something what also we as a Poles, we love to improve. We're constantly improving everything, ourselves, our other people. That's why we criticize. We want to improve a system, we want to improve some process, we want constantly improve something. So sometimes also that's why what we're talking about language, that's why we need a safe environment, but as well just to practice sometimes. And for practicing, we also can improve and feel more confident. It doesn't need to be, this is what I shared about this colleague from Canada, because of course it was my idea, right? Could you improve my English? So then when he started pointing some things, I was like, okay, so maybe I won't say anything, because then I was too focused on this correctness and so on. I was like, okay, I made myself, not the biggest, let's say, the nicest gift which I could have.
But it comes from not understanding the process of how we should learn, how we should study languages, and that's a huge topic, like immensely. I am like blabbling in our introductory part to the trainings at PLA school. It takes 8 hours. This background on how system doesn't work and how we should be conscious of the process, and only then we can manage it, and you as the student should know how to manage that process. And the thing is that in this educational system, this traditional educational system, this awareness is non-existent actually, and you just do quite a lot of things and you study for many hours, weeks and months and even years, but you do not have this bigger picture, so you can't really put the puzzles together, and the outcome is just sorry.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I believe that we should, as adults, be more conscious what we need, how we can really fastly improve things. And this word improve in the sense like to be in the right spot, right direction, redirecting even. So now we can say as well that we need to learn how to unlearn things, and this is nowadays extremely important. That's why. From my area, it's important to see that word. It's not only how we see, but other people might see this through their perspective. It might be very different, and as well about language. That's something what we taught, or that we have certification, or that we have somebody declare that they can speak. It's one thing, and then it's
exactly.
Instagram versus reality. And it's also that's why it's also how we feel with all of this, because you can, people can speak because this is our natural ability. We can talk to work with other people, but it's the quality of this. So how much fun we have of speaking English, of working with other cultures, of understanding this, what is really going on. So be consciously there, not just doing this and then feeling fully stressed. So we start with stress, and that's why I believe we can also finish this. So taking care of aspects which reduce this stress level and uncertainty, they will bring us huge benefits in collaboration. And then, projects, money are coming because we know how to gain them, and how to, if we are self-confident, then people also see this. So this is the most important.
Projects, money, and the body. Yes, thank you very much for listening. And Monika, thank you turbo much.
Thank you so much as well for invitation, fruitful conversation, cross fingers for everybody. In this intercultural, diverse world, to understand each other better, especially ourselves.
Thank you once again, and cheers.
Thank you so much. Bye.